They left him where the ground cracked like a broken jaw, certain the son would finish what the whip had begun. And in that moment, when the world decided his life was already over, a girl no older than 12 stepped out of the trees and changed the fate of everyone who would ever speak his name. The summer of 1867 pressed down on the land like a hand that refused to lift. The war was over, they said. Freedom had been declared. But in the back country, words moved slower than chains. Fields still breathed dust. Old habits still walked upright. And on the far edge of a former plantation, where the fence leaned like it was tired of standing, a giant of a man lay half buried in weeds, his chest barely rising, his skin split and swollen from days of punishment meant to make an example of him. No one spoke his name anymore. They called him the brute, the ox, the thing too big to break. He had been bought for his size years earlier, worked until the ground itself seemed to fear him, and when emancipation came, his body was still expected to obey. When he refused to haul timber for no pay, when he stood silent instead of bowing, the men decided his freedom was a mistake that needed correcting. They dragged him out beyond the fields and left him there, not quite dead, not quite alive. A warning carved in flesh. The girl watched from the tree line with her heart pounding so loudly she was sure the men would hear it. Her name was Eliza. She had learned to be quiet the way other children learned to laugh. Quiet when boots passed. Quiet when voices sharpened. Quiet when pain didn't belong to her, but could easily become hers. She had been gathering watercress for her mother when she saw them. 3 men, laughing too hard, wiping their hands on their trousers like the job was finished. When they were gone, the land fell silent in a way that felt wrong. Birds didn't return. Cicadas paused. Even the wind seemed unsure of itself. Eliza waited longer than she needed to, because fear teaches patience better than any lesson. Then she stepped forward. Up close, he looked less like a giant and more like a ruin. His shoulders were wider than her doorway at home. His hands, those hands, were torn and raw, nails split, knuckles bruised purple-black. His face was turned away, pressed into the dirt as if the earth itself was the only thing still willing to hold him. Flies hovered, bold and cruel. Eliza waved them off with shaking fingers and knelt, the heat burning through the thin fabric of her dress. She didn't know why she did it. No plan had formed in her mind. No brave speech. Only a pull in her chest so strong it hurt to breathe. She touched his arm and felt warmth. Life. Fragile, stubborn life. Mister, she whispered, the word trembling. Mister, don't die. His eyes opened just a slit, dark and unfocused. For a moment, she thought she imagined it. Then his breath hitched, a low sound like a tree creaking in a storm. He tried to move and failed. The sound that escaped him was not a groan, but something closer to surprise, as if he hadn't expected the world to answer him anymore. Eliza looked back toward the fields, toward the road, toward everything that could take this moment away. If anyone saw her here, helping him, she knew what would follow. Freedom or not, some truths were enforced with fists. Her mother's voice lived in her head, warning and weary. Don't draw eyes. Don't invite trouble. Survive first. But survival has many shapes, and sometimes it looks like kneeling in the dirt beside a man everyone else has decided to forget. She ran, not away, toward the creek. Her bare feet slapped against the dry ground, her lungs burning as she filled a tin cup and soaked the hem of her dress. She ran back, heart racing, expecting at any moment to hear shouting. She pressed the cool cloth to his lips, letting drops fall slowly. His mouth moved, barely, drinking like a child learning how. She worked without thinking. Water, shade, pulled from a torn sack she found tangled in the weeds. She cleaned what she could, hands steady despite the tremor in her chest. She spoke to him because silence felt dangerous. My mama says storms pass, she murmured. Even the bad ones. His eyes focused on her face then, really saw her, and something shifted. Shame maybe, or disbelief. A girl, a child, risking everything for him. He tried to speak and couldn't. She leaned closer. It's all right, she said, though she had no idea if it was. I'm here. Hours passed measured only by the sun's slow crawl. Eliza knew she couldn't stay forever. She knew night would bring other dangers. But leaving him like this felt like betrayal. She made a choice that would echo longer than she understood. She would bring him food. She would come back tomorrow. And the next day. And the next, until he could stand, or until the land took him despite her efforts. She slipped away as quietly as she had come. The image of his face burned into her mind. That night, she didn't sleep. Every sound felt like footsteps. Every shadow felt like consequence. At dawn, she returned with bread hidden under her shawl, and hope she didn't know how to explain. He was still alive. Each day after, she came. Each day, he took a little more water, a little more food. Each day, his eyes followed her with something that grew heavier and brighter at the same time. Gratitude, yes, but also fear. He knew what her kindness could cost her. He tried to tell her to stop, to leave him. She shook her head every time. They already left you to die, she said softly. I won't. By the end of the week, whispers moved through the area like smoke. Someone had seen movement by the old fence. Someone said the giant wasn't dead after all. Men talked. Eyes searched. And one evening, as Eliza knelt beside him, she heard footsteps where there shouldn't have been any. She froze, hand still pressed to his arm, and for the first time since she stepped out of the trees, fear finally caught up with her. The footsteps didn't rush toward them. That was what made them terrifying. They moved slow, deliberate, like whoever owned them had no doubt about their right to be there. Eliza felt the sound in her bones before she saw the shadows stretch across the weeds. Her first instinct was to run, but her body refused. Running would mean leaving him, and leaving him would mean he died. The giant's eyes widened. He tried to lift himself, panic flashing across his face, but his strength still betrayed him. Eliza pressed her palm against his chest, gentle but firm. Don't, she whispered. Please. The shadow stopped a few yards away. A man's voice followed, low and curious, not angry yet. That was worse. Well now, the voice said. Would you look at that? Eliza turned slowly. It was old Mr. Harlan, the land's former overseer, a man whose power hadn't died with the war the way it was supposed to. He leaned on a stick more for authority than balance, his eyes sharp, measuring everything. The girl. The giant. The truth laid bare in the dirt. I heard something been moving out here, he said, tapping the ground. Thought maybe the buzzards were lying. Eliza swallowed. Her mind raced. Every warning her mother had ever given her colliding at once. But something steadied her. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was anger. Or maybe it was the simple fact that she was done watching people be erased. He's hurt, she said. Her voice surprised even her. Clear, unbroken. He needs help. Mr. Harlan snorted. Help? He glanced down at the giant like one might inspect a broken tool. That thing made its choice. He's a man, Eliza said louder now. And you left him to die. Silence followed. The air tightened. The giant squeezed his eyes shut, as if bracing for the end. Mr. Harlan stepped closer. Too close. Eliza felt the heat of his shadow swallow her whole. You got a lot of nerve, he said. Talking like that. She met his gaze. Her hands shook, but she didn't lower them. And you got blood on yours. For a moment, Eliza thought she had crossed an invisible line that could never be uncrossed. But something unexpected happened. Mr. Harlan laughed. Not a kind laugh. Not a loud one. A thin sound, sharp at the edges. Girl, he said, you think the world changed because some paper got signed? You think sighs like that, he nodded toward the giant, doesn't scare folks? He's a reminder. And reminders get dealt with. Eliza felt the truth of that settle in her chest like a stone. But she also felt something else. Defiance. Not the loud kind. The kind that survives. If you're going to finish it, she said quietly, do it now. But I'm not leaving. The giant's eyes flew open. He stared at her, shaking his head weakly. No, his lips formed. Go. Mr. Harlan studied her, long and hard. Finally, he spat into the dirt and turned away. Keep your mouth shut, he muttered. Both of you. When he disappeared down the path, Eliza collapsed to her knees. Breath coming in sharp gasps, she couldn't stop. The giant let out a sound that might have been a sob or a prayer. She pressed her forehead to his arm, grounding herself in the fact that he was still here. But they both knew something had changed. The secret was gone. That night, Eliza told her mother everything. Her mother listened without interrupting, her face carved from worry and understanding. When Eliza finished, silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Then her mother reached for her hands. You shouldn't have had to be that brave, she said softly. But I was, Eliza replied. Her mother closed her eyes, the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Then we'll be brave together. The next morning, they brought food. Real food. Clean cloth. Her mother knelt beside the giant with practiced care, her movements gentle, respectful. She didn't ask his name at first. She didn't need to. She treated him like someone who mattered, and that alone seemed to pull him back toward the world. "My name is Isaiah," he said eventually, voice rough like an used iron. Speaking cost him, but it mattered. They hid him as best they could, dragging brush and old boards to shield him from view. Word still spread, though. In places like this, it always did. Some people whispered with fear, others with anger, a few with something closer to hope. Isaiah healed slowly, too slowly for comfort. Each attempt to sit up left him shaking, sweat pouring from his skin. Eliza stayed with him, talking about anything and everything. Stories she half remembered, dreams she hadn't dared speak aloud before. He listened like every word was a rope pulling him back from the edge. One afternoon, as the cicadas screamed overhead, Isaiah asked a question that caught her off guard. "Why me?" he said. Eliza thought about it, about all the reasons she could give and all the ones she couldn't. Finally, she answered honestly. "Because you were there," she said, "and because I couldn't stand it if the world stayed the same." That night, torches appeared on the road. Not many. Enough. Men's voices carried through the dark, sharp and certain. Eliza's mother stiffened. Isaiah tried to rise and failed, frustration burning through him. "They're coming," he said. "For me." Eliza felt fear claw up her throat, but beneath it, something else stirred. The same thing that had driven her out of the trees weeks ago. "No," she said. "They're coming to be reminded." As the light crept closer, the question hung heavy in the air, unanswered and dangerous. Would the world crush the kindness of a girl, or would her courage force it to bend? The torches didn't rush in. They circled, slow and deliberate, flames bobbing like cruel stars against the dark. Isaiah could hear them breathing, smell the smoke, feel the old terror rising in his chest, the kind that came from knowing your body had once been owned and could be claimed again by force. He tried to stand. His legs betrayed him. Pain flared white-hot, and he fell back into the dirt with a sound that cut Eliza straight through the heart. "No," she whispered, grabbing his arm. "Please don't." Eliza's mother stepped forward before fear could pull her back. She stood between the light and the man they had nursed back from the edge of death, her small frame steady in a way that made the shadows hesitate. "You'll go no further," she said. A voice answered from the dark, mocking and loud. "And who's going to stop us?" Eliza didn't plan it. She didn't think. She moved. She stepped out from behind her mother and into the firelight, her face fully visible, her hands shaking but open. 12 years old, barefoot, unarmed, a child standing where grown men expected silence. "You already tried to kill him," she said. Her voice carried, thin but sharp. "And he lived." The men shifted. Some lowered their torches just a little. Others tightened their grips. One of them laughed, uneasy. "Girl," he said, "this ain't your business." "It is," Eliza replied. "Because I saw what you did. And because I helped him live when you wanted him gone." That word, live, hung in the air like a challenge. Isaiah watched her, disbelief flooding him. All his life, he had been used as proof of strength. A body, a tool, a threat. Never once had he imagined that his survival would be defended by a child's courage. He felt something break loose inside him then. Not weakness, but the last chain of shame. He pushed himself up again. This time, he didn't fall. His knees trembled, but he stood, towering in the firelight, scars etched across his skin like a map of cruelty. The men sucked in their breath. Seeing him whole, alive, was different than remembering him beaten and broken. He wasn't a rumor anymore. He was a witness. "I ain't here to hurt nobody," Isaiah said, voice deep and steady despite the pain ripping through him. "I just want to walk away free." One man stepped forward. "You don't get to choose that." Isaiah looked at Eliza, then at her mother, then back at the circle of fire. "I already did," he said. "The war did. And if you kill me now, you'll have to do it in front of her." The torches wavered. No one wanted to be the first to move. Because killing a man was one thing. Doing it in front of a child who refused to look away was something else entirely. From the edge of the circle, a new voice rose. Older. Tired. Enough. It was a man from the nearby town, someone with just enough standing to make the others listen. "Ain't nothing good comes from this," he said. "Let him go. Let it end." The silence stretched, fragile and tense. Then, one by one, torches lowered. Men backed away, muttering, defeated not by force, but by being seen. When the last flame disappeared into the dark, Eliza realized she was crying. Not loud, just steady tears she hadn't allowed herself before. Isaiah dropped to his knees beside her, overwhelmed, his great shoulders shaking. "You saved me," he said, voice breaking. "When you didn't have to." Eliza shook her head. "You saved yourself. I just didn't let you be alone." By dawn, word had spread. Not the kind that hunted, but the kind that gathered. People came quietly. Some brought food. Some brought cloth. Some brought nothing but their presence. Isaiah was helped onto a wagon, every movement careful, respectful. He left that land not as a body dragged away, but as a man carried forward. Years later, they would say a giant walked out of the fields in 1867 and never bowed again. They would say a child stood in front of fire and didn't flinch. They would say freedom didn't arrive all at once, but sometimes came on small, barefoot steps. And Eliza? She grew older in a world that remembered her courage, even when it tried to forget its own cruelty. She never called herself a hero. She said she just refused to let the silence win. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that history isn't only shaped by power, but by compassion, then stay with us. Subscribe to The Forgotten Cell and help keep these voices alive, because the stories the world tried to bury still have something to teach us today.